Welcome back to Writing Done Right. Well, today we're going to have a brief look at installing Publisher Rocket on Linux, should you use the Linux operating system like I do. And if you're on Windows or Mac, just go ahead and grab the installers for those. But for those on Linux, we'll go ahead and talk about how to get that done. Thanks for checking out this video. I am Tom Morosky, an author and a technology consultant, and today we want to talk briefly about Publisher Rocket. This is an excellent software application. It's one of those ones where, as much as I like to use FOSS software, this is one that has a lot of really good stuff in it, and it makes it worth the purchasing price for $100 for the lifetime license use of the software. Now, eventually they are going to change this into a subscription model. So if you've been thinking about picking it up, go ahead and do that. You will find an affiliate link in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and talk briefly about getting Publisher Rocket working on Linux. There was at one point in time an FAQ page which said, hey, you can do that. And they do have a motion that says some people have success with Wine and some people don't. And I believe that they took that page down, and the reason is there was a little bit of a time period where you really could not get it running. And I want to explain just a little bit of the technical mumbo jumbo as to why that is the case. So if you're just like, okay, I don't really care about all that, let's go ahead and get it installed, I'll go ahead and have a timestamp here. But for those that want a little bit more detail and why it didn't work, let's go ahead and talk about this. So you use the application called Wine, which is an acronym meaning Wine is not an emulator. Because a lot of people said, well, this allows you to get a Windows emulation. Well, it's not a emulation as much as it is a compatibility layer. I personally am not a huge advocate of having Wine on your Linux computer without a very specific reason. And the reason for that is it will allow Windows executable viruses to run on your system. And so I generally have steered away from distros that have it installed by default. However, there are times you do need to get it running. Now, I have been in communication with the folks at Publisher Rocket, and they said they are working on a native Linux build. As soon as that is out, this video will become obsolete, and I would recommend that you install the Linux version. But for now, at the time of this recording, you do not have access to a Linux build, so you have the Windows and you have the Mac. I could actually spin up a virtual machine. The problem is that the resources a virtual machine takes, especially since getting a basic Windows install requires 60 gigabytes of virtual drive space taken up in that Windows machine, is a whole lot to run for a simple, very lightweight program. And so this makes utilizing Wine a good option. However, there was a problem with Wine in the Ubuntu 18 package base. In fact, there were a lot of problems with the Ubuntu 18 package base. This is one of the drawbacks of that particular distribution, which is the most popular Linux distribution, but they release things on a solid, rigid schedule. And when you release things on a solid, rigid schedule, there's some things that kind of fall by the wayside. One of the many applications in the 1804 package base was Wine. Now, the 16 and the 20 base for Ubuntu are absolutely rock solid. 18 was always a little bit of a rocky. It was kind of like Windows Vista. It really sucked until those service packages got in there, if you remember back that long. However, in the 2004 package base, some of the back-end stuff is now resolved, and if you were trying to use Publisher Rocket in the last 6 months or so, and you probably have not had any good luck, well, go ahead and give it a try now as long as you are on that new package base. So in my case here, I'm using Linux Mint, and I use the Linux Mint 20.1, which is brand new at the time of recording this video. I tried every single method to get this on Linux Mint 19.3, but every single time it failed because Linux Mint 19 is based on the 1804 Ubuntu package base. What happened? Well, in the Ubuntu 1804, this is the first time they removed 32-bit support, and there was even some discussion about removing 32-bit Wine support as well. This actually caused a big snafu in the Linux community, and there was some pushback, and they said, okay, let's not do that. And there were ways to get 32-bit versions of Wine running on Ubuntu, but they never really did as good of a job as they could have. However, here in the 2004 package base, that is now resolved. So if you're wanting to get Publisher Rocket running on Linux, and I didn't test Arch, I didn't test any of the other Debians, I didn't test any of the Fedoras, I just worked on the Ubuntu for the very simple reason that Linux Mint is what I use for my production machines. The goal is, let's take my publishing computer that's used to run my publishing business and get Publisher Rocket on that because that's where I want it to run. And I failed because that was running Linux Mint 19.3. So I spun up some VMs to try and get a Linux box and figure out what type of staging environment I'd get to running, and I am pleased to announce now that I have that done. And we're going to walk through that. But what was the biggest problem is there were some dependencies that were missing from the Ubuntu 1804 package base. The 32-bit architecture support wasn't there. There were ways to patch it in with PPAs, but those gave you a little bit of a different result. So ultimately, if you're wanting to run Publisher Rocket, you want to be on that 2004 package base, either Ubuntu 2004, or in my case, I'm doing Linux Mint 20.1, which is what I upgraded my publishing computer to in order to get this running. We are going to run into a couple of possible snags. I'm going to show you how to fix all of those. But for the most part here, we're going to run on over to a virtual machine. I'm going to show you the steps that you need to do to get Publisher Rocket running on your Linux machine. And this video is going to be done in Linux Mint 20.1, but we'll go ahead and show you the final working product. So with that, let's head on over to the computer. So here we are on the Linux Mint desktop, and I have my Publisher Rocket setup.exe file, and all we're getting to is the point where it's going to ask us for our license key, and I will not be able to go any further because this is not the computer that that license key is used for. But I just wanted to go ahead and show you, once you get to that point there, everything is going to work. On the screen here, these are the instructions we need to do. The biggest concern is that starting on Ubuntu 18, the i386 architecture is not enabled by default. As of 2004 Ubuntu package base, this can now easily be enabled without any other real hassles. So we're going to go ahead and add that architecture. Now, you might be able to, with this package base, use whatever version of Wine is in the repository. To be honest, I didn't try it because there were some issues with some things in Wine. There were some problems with running as administrators and not. And so the build that I was able to get working, and I'm sure there's plenty of other ones out there, you guys can let me know what you have tried and what has worked for you in the comments. The one that worked for me is to use the WineHQ Staging. And since this is really the only program I'm trying to run on this computer with Wine, we're going to go ahead and just use that. Now, I did try to use something like Play on Linux for containerization. I couldn't get that to work. However, all those tests were still done on the 1804 package base. So it's very possible that if you were to install Play on Linux, then with the Wine staging, then you probably could get this to work that way as well. But for me, I didn't want to fight with that any longer. I got it working exactly the way I needed to work, and now we are good to go. So with that, what we're going to do is we got in there, make sure your computer is up to date, and then all we're going to do is get some Wine configuration going. And this is going to take a while. Plan on all the steps you need to do to actually take probably about an hour or so, maybe even 2 hours, depending. Well, we'll see. We can watch the clock down here. It's 16:01 right now, and we'll see what it is when we're done. And I'll be cutting the video in and out for the stages. That's going to take a lot of work. We're going to go ahead and start by adding the i386 architecture. Enter your password, and now you are good. Now this guy here this will be in the description down there. This is, we're going to grab the key, just the package repository key for the WineHQ alternate builds. And we're going to add the deb repository for the WineHQ as well. Now at this point here, notice that we're going to install WineHQ-staging. And this is going to be this part that's going to give us the staging version. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to update. gotta make sure you update anytime you add a new repository. Sorry about that. And there we are. Now it's gonna find a whole bunch of stuff. We're gonna go ahead and let this do its thing. And then the last thing we're gonna wanna install here when this is done is winetricks. We could have probably just went ahead and added winetricks to the end of this line, but that's perfectly okay. So once this is done, the next step is, it's not like, okay, you got wine installed, go ahead and click your Publisher Rocket and go, because there's going to be a lot of other stuff that it needs and it might fail on those installs. And so I'm actually going to prep everything that I know I'm going to need in advance of trying to actually open up the executable file. So we're going to go ahead and let this guy do its thing and we will be back. So it's installed wine. Now we'll go ahead and do the winetricks. Sudo apt install winetricks. And that one will be a quick install here. We'll go ahead and wait for that guy to go. So what this is going to give us, let's go ahead and exit out of there. We're done with that step. And actually we're done with this step here as well. So now what we're going to do is we will have a winetricks application. This is going to boot up the configuration settings for doing things with wine. Now here we are going to get a whole lot of pop-ups. You're going to get a whole lot of things that are like, they're going to look like errors and warnings and messages. You are going to be in pop-up hell for a little bit, but that's actually okay. Just dig through it. Just keep pushing OK or install or OK or install, and you will actually get down to it. So right now we need to do the Wine Mono installer, and it'll probably talk to you about installing Wine Mono installer a few times. For some reason, it likes to reset itself. And then what we actually have to do is we're going to change a couple of configuration settings and we're going to add some Windows components. So the biggest Windows component that we want to install is you need .NET 4.5. I've actually been installing 4.52 and even going up to up to 4.7.2, I think. We'll have a look. So here's this one here. It's like gives you this warning about 32, 64-bit. You're going to see that warning all the time. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and click through it. So here we can see select the default wine prefix. We want to hit OK. And this is where we're going to make some changes. Would you like to help Winetricks by sending statistics? No, I'm not a big fan of sending statistics. So here we can see install Windows DLL or component. This is the part that's going to take a while because what we need to do is we need to come down here and find your .NET. So I want to install .NET 4.5.2. But this is going to have to go back through and install all of the prior .NETs first because I guess Microsoft is stupid. And you're going to have to go ahead and click OK, 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 OK. And this part might actually take up to an hour of waiting just to install stuff. Now, I've been going up to 4.7.2. I don't think it's actually necessary. We're going to test it on 4.5.2. That's the only component that I know of that we really needed to get installed. So we're going to click OK. It might ask us to install Mono and Gecko again. We're going to see this pop up about umpteen billion times. You're going to start hating it. It's going to start giving you PSTD or something. And then here it says it may not fully work. The 32 prefixes might be better. That's okay. We're not worried about it. And now it's going to be downloading and installing the .NETs going all the way back to like version 2. And you're going to see all of these pop-ups every time it's going to do 2. It's going to do 2.5. It's going to do 3. It's going to do 4. Then it's going to do 4.5.2. See, here's some working around bugs. We're going to see a lot of those as well as there's some known bugs. And so Wine has programmed some things that will get around it. You can see we are in pop-up hell at this point. Hey, where are we going up to 4.0? That's exciting. And then the last thing it's going to do, and I'll show you on that step, it's actually going to reset your Windows version back to Windows XP. We're going to need to change that at the end step. Oh, Mono does not appear to be installed. Okay, we're going to install Mono again. So we'll go ahead and stop the notice here. All you're doing here is just clicking and clicking and clicking until you get that Winetricks configuration screen popped back up. So you're going to see it going through here, and you're going to see it pop up. You're going to see some of these Windows installer folders. You're going to see some .NET prettier Windows install folders, you're just going to go ahead and click through all of these guys. Oh, don't forget to read and accept the license terms, and I would probably not send your set of experiences to the Microsoft Corporation. So this part here is the part that's going to take a little bit of time. It looks like it might even be frozen. You're going to give it at least about a half hour-ish or so. And this computer is actually a very beefy system. So don't worry about the fact this is going to take a while. Like I said, we're possibly going to be installing software for about 2 hours. Mostly it's just coming in and just clicking OK. So you can let it go and just come on back here and click when something's done. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video here, and we will be back when we have an important screen. So that didn't take as long as I had anticipated, although it might not be done. So it says here you need to restart now. So that doesn't restart the whole computer. That's just restarting the Windows compatibility layer. And you'll see here it says setting Windows version to 2003. Otherwise, applications using .NET 4.5 will subtly fail. Changing that back now that it has changed itself generally isn't a problem. So let's go ahead and see if we're back to here. Now what we're going to do is run wine config. So go ahead and hit that button there. This is going to bring up your old wine configuration thing. Looks like an old Windows application. I'm going to change this back up to Windows 10. Push OK. Now the next thing that we are going to want to do is we're going to change some settings. There's one setting that I found that on this particular build gives me problems, not as much here on the virtual machines, but on my actual real build. And you'll see the, I think it was this guy here. Let me check my notes real briefly. So it was this one here, DDR equals GDI. So what we need to do is I had to, on my production build, toggle this guy here, which is going to draw any of the DirectX renderer, which is how Windows is doing things, into GDI. You can do OpenGL or GDI. This is probably going to differ on your graphics card. If this is the component that fails, all you're going to do is get a black screen. So I had to do this on my production. I'm going to leave it unchecked here, but if you get a black screen, play with these two options. Turn them on, turn them off. All right, so now with that, let's go ahead and cancel out of here. And now we'll see if our application runs. Okay, so our application ran. And now we have this. It's going to ask us for either the email address or enter your license key manually. So you will have been emailed your license key or you give them your email address. Now I won't be able to activate this one because I've already activated my license too many times and trying to figure out how to get this guy running on VMs. So I will not be able to get in here, but we are going to do a separate video about how to do this. But there is going to be one more step you're going to want to do, and that is to pretty up your KDP setting here. And so over here, this is under wine. You'll see it kind of looks like a boring gear here. So what you're going to want to do here is I'm just going to go online and just grab an icon logo for Publisher Rocket. So let's just go ahead and do Publisher Rocket logo. Let's do this in start page because Yahoo really sucks. Like, not just I don't like Yahoo, it's just it really gives you bad results. And so over here we're gonna find a logo. So go ahead and click on this guy. Hey, that looks like a perfect logo. We'll go ahead and save this image as. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and just save it. I might actually create a folder here called logos. So we'll go ahead and do that. And go ahead and save it. And I'm going to save it as Pub Rocket. Okay, let's close down our web browser. And now I'm going to configure my menu here because I don't like that wine menu being there. So this will be applying to editing the menu in this way. It's going to apply to any Cinnamon desktop. We're going to go down to wine. And we're going to need to pull down programs, and we're going to need to pull down Publisher Rocket. And then we're going to come over here. We're going to cut it here. And I'll go ahead and put this under Office, paste it here. And now we're going to go ahead and hit the Properties button. Everything there should be fine. Go ahead and pull this guy out here. Browse for your logo. And we'll come down here to this and click that. push OK, close, close, and then I can clean up the stuff off the desktop. So now I can access Publisher Rocket by just going under my, I thought I put it under my office. Sometimes when you move things around like this, you need to actually restart Cinnamon for them to show up, but it should show up under your office after the next reboot. So here you'll get logged in right here. It's once again going to ask us for our license key, but once you enter the license key, it's working. Again, if you get that black screen, check out those two what are they? Check out those two DDR equals GDI or DDR equals OpenGL, depending on what your graphic drivers happen to be. So now we have a production computer running with KDP Rocket. So thanks for having a look at this video. If you want to see more content like this, let me know, subscribe to the channel, and have a look at the website at WritingDoneRight.net.